Uh, Good morning, Professor, and also our fellow classmates. Hello, we're Group B, and I'm Aiden. And today's our topic for this presentation is New World Order. And first, let's review the Modesty model of world leadership. This model shows that the concept of world leadership and the global power that shift over extended periods of time representing a cycle. The cycle goes like this. An international system is in a state of anarchy. Conflicts between countries are difficult to solve diplomatically, so we can't avoid employing force. Wars will happen a lot. Some countries try to expand their power over others, but the international politics will be stabilized because countries are controlled by those overwhelming powers, and countries will gradually lose military power to prioritize economic benefits. They store power independently, and war becomes the fastest way to solve conflicts. At this stage, it comes back to stage one. The powerful countries loses its power, and a new challenger starts the cycle again. When a world order is established, we usually can observe that great power is setting an agenda for every state which serves their interests, but in the name of goodness for all humans. So in this presentation, we are reviewing the establishment of world order and the associating agenda for the past 80 years. Then analyze the current world order. This is our table of content, and let's move to the first part, the past world order. Firstly, the past 80 years can be briefly divided into three periods, namely the Cold War period, post-Cold War period, and a so-called new Cold War period. Okay, so let's look at the Cold War period. The U.S.-Soviet Union bipolar world war order. Following the aftermath of World War II, the structure of the world order in the 20th century was largely characterized by the dominance of the United States and also the Soviet Union. The division between the Western blocs and the Southern blocs was not only ideological, with capitalism versus communism as it's called, but it also has had significant geopolitical implication. The bipolar structure of the Cold War world order, the Cold War world order meticulously examined the Cambridge history of the Cold War, extended across various dimensions and left a lasting imprint on global geopolitics. In military terms, the bipolar world order was marked by an unprecedented arms race between the superpowers. Both the United States and the Soviet Union amassed colossal arsenal of nuclear weapons, up to 3,000 or 30,000 collective nuclear warhead at the peak of the Cold War. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 uh, was eventually diffused through diplomacy, showcases the extraordinary stakes and consequences in their rivalry. On the political front, the superpowers' influence reverberated through their alliance, NATO, founded by the United States and Western European nations, embodied the Western Bloc, uh, constituting a formidable counterbalance to the Eastern Bloc represented by the Soviet-led Warsaw Pact. The construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961 was a poignant manifestation of this political struggle. The division of Germany and the construction of the wall underscored the competing ideologies of capitalism and communism, serving as a vivid symbol of the bipolar world order. The eventual fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 signaled the conclusion of the Cold War era, reflecting the geopolitical transformation within the bipolar system. During the Cold War, socialist values promoting collectivism and government intervention in economics were strong opponents to Western individualism values such as democracy and freedom. The contradicting values formed two blocs, the capitalist and the socialist blocs, each led by the US and the USSR. These two blocs form parallel world order, and their values become the agenda within their blocs. They try to promote their values to broader region, which eventually caused regional turmoil and civil war in other countries. The Korean War stands as a prominent example. The United States supported the South Korea, while the Soviet Union endorsed North Korea. effectively transforming the Korean Peninsula into a proxy battleground. Similarly, the Vietnam War became a focal point of Cold War competition, with the United States providing support for the South Vietnam against communist forces aligned with the Soviet Union. This example collectively underscore the extensive, far-reaching consequences of the bipolar structure of Cold War world order and contradicting ideologies. The rivalry between the superpowers permeated every facet of global affairs, shaping the military strategies, forging political alliance, and influencing regional conflicts. The enduring legacy of the Cold War and the bipolar world order continued to inform contemporary international relations, serving as a pivotal chapter of the annals of the in the annals of 20th century history. And with the collapse of the USSR in 1991 and the end of the Cold War, the world entered a unipolar moment, and with the United States as the sole superpower. So let's move on to the post-Cold War period. The period of American hegemony emerged in the aftermath of the Cold War, characterized by unparalleled military, economic, and political influence. This era saw the United States ascend to the position of a sole superpower. At the heart of American hegemony was its unrivaled military power. The United States, equipped with a formidable military arsenal, stood as the preeminent force in global security. The Gulf War of 1990s to 1991, where the United States-led coalition swiftly defeated Iraq, exemplified the extent of American military dominance and reach across the globe. American hegemony extended beyond the realm of military might, encompassing economic preeminence. The US boosted the world's largest and most influential economy, with the dollar as the global reserve currency. The principles of free market capitalism and also economic liberalization, championed by the United States, gained prominence. The NAFTA and also the formation of the WTO reflected the United States' commitment to advancing global trade and economic integration. And the US, during its periods of hegemony, held considerably political authority on the world stage. American values of democracy, human rights, and liberal governance were promoted as universal ideals. This endeavor involving promoting institutions like the UN and also WTO, as well as expanding the influences of the existing alliance like NATO. For example, American leadership in diplomacy was evident in the Dayton Agreement, which ended the Bosnian War, and the negotiation of the Oslo Accord, seeking peace in the Middle East. This action aimed to reinforce American leadership in the international institution and also alliance, and promote a liberal international order based on democratic values. Okay. And now let's move on to the second part, the landscape of the current world order. The current structure of the world order in the 21st century is marked by a dynamic of complex landscape defined by several key features. This evolving global system is shaped by a combination of evolving alliance and network in response to a global importance of the international institution and emerging challenges such as climate change, terrorism, pandemics, and that required collective international actions. But the most important features of the current world order would be characterized by multipolarity, where when multiple major powers emerge to exert significant influence on uh, global politics. While the US remains as a superpower, other nations like China, Russia, and the EU have become pivotal players. So let's look at one of the key players, China. China's remarkable economic growth has transformed it into a global powerhouse, and the reasons of China can be seen as a power now are the economic power. China is the world's second largest economy. Her large and rapidly growing economy rivals at the United States, making it an economic superpower. And second one, Belt and Road Initiative. China's ambiguous initiative is helping it establish economic ties with developing countries and secure access to critical resources, enhancing its global influence. And the third is competition. China competes with the developed democracies on a global scale and is actively engaging with developing states and other countries. And the last one is sustained economic growth. China's ongoing economic growth, investment, and also international development projects solidify its position as a major global player. With the rapid rise of China and Russia regaining power, China advocates for her agenda to fight against the Western agenda. China calls for five principles. I'm so sorry. China calls for five principles for um, peaceful coexistence, which namely are mutual respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, mu- mutual non-aggression, non-interference in other international affairs, equality and mutual benefits, and also peaceful coexistence. And China is using these principles to criticize U.S. involvement in other countries' domestic issues. China also calls for a human community with a shared future. The important takeaway from it are promote cooperation over confrontation and embrace diversity and respect differences, and it foster a world characterized by openness, inclusiveness, equity, justice, harmony, diversity, and cooperation. And lastly, foster a world of common prosperity through win-win cooperation. China advocacy um, of this agenda emphasize the importance of global cooperation, inclusivity, and multilateralism. It aims to address global challenges through equitable international system, foster peace and stability, and promote win-win cooperation. This concept underscores China's vision for a more harmonious and cooperative world order, though it is subject to varying degrees of international reception. And now let's look at the European Union as the key players in the New World Order. Although the EU is not considered strictly as a state, the EU will be classified as a state for the purpose of the argument given its embodiment of many of the attributes of a state. First, lawmaking and regulating capability, uh, and then a currency which serves as the world's second largest reserve currency, and then a foreign and security policy through diplomatic presentation and intervention. And then the EU plays a crucial role of stabilizing force as the world's most influential regulator who diverges in several crucial domains. For example, the EU economic aids kept Ukraine afloat between 2014 to 2021, um, with their sanction against Russia more significant than the United States. The scope of their influence can be understood by trying to imagine the world without their involvement. For example, the EU played an important role in maintaining each state's position during the war between Ukraine and also Russia. They prevented China from marching into many eastern and southern European states into its orbit as it was doing before Russia invaded Ukraine. In addition, Moscow would likely have attempted to disintegrate European governments from one another. And lastly, without the EU compromise machine, some major players in the EU would have been far more reluctant to reduce their dependence on Russian oil and gas. Okay, as let's we can move to our conclusion. Okay, so in brief, the world order of the US being the unipolar has ended, and we are facing a multipolar world in China and EU are influential now. We may also see changes in the international agenda. Okay. Each world order has its agenda, and agenda changes when a new world order is established. The democracy and freedom are well-known and long-lasting values promoted by United States in the global agenda, but they are not always prevailing. They face stiff competition with others' values, and sometimes even backlash. During the Cold War period, socialist values were the strong opponent, and now in the new Cold War period, China's agenda is the American agenda's latest rival. And thank you so much. That's all for our presentation, and bye bye.